Good evening. Hello, good evening, students. Today in the class, we will discuss American poetry. Okay, am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. So, guys, today we will know about American poetry. Basically, we will understand American poetry in the context of America only and its inspiration. There are some, movements like Declaration of Independence in July, American independence, right? So many such historical incidents are also, importantly discussed in the context of American or in the formation of American poetry. Society and its social, setting, situation, and political situation, economic situation, literary situation. So all these backgrounds of, America and its, culture, it's very importantly delineated in the, shaping of American poetry. So my dear students, American poetry, is very, it has got like, very peculiar and very interesting beginning, and some of the initial American poems are traced back to the English colonists who were based in America. And uh, and and as you know, like, America was also one of the colonies of Britain, like India. And under the British rule, America, survived for many years, and you know uh, like, it was a colony until the United States Declaration of Independence in July 1776 was declared. Then in the 17th century, the English colonists expressed in poetry their impression of different aspects of life in the country of their occupation. Annie Bradstreet and Thomas Morton are two such poets who wrote in the 1600s. And in 1625, Reverend William Morrill wrote the poem New England, which is believed to be a rhymed catalogue of American weather, the native women, and the various other American aspects noticed by British colonists. So, guys, these are like the poets actually, or the writers, those who started writing in the beginning after the formation of America. Okay, as New England, right? It was known as by Thomas Morton and Annie Bradstreet and Reverend William Morrill, right? So William Morrill, when he writes this poem, the New England, which is believed to be a rhymed catalogue of basically discussing the American climate and the condition of Native American women, and almost like it's a mixture of, or it is a poem which delineates the almost very important aspects of America. And this trend of British colonists writing about America started in the 15th century and continued well into the 16th and 17th century. So for almost like 300 years or 3 centuries, this process continued. Right. Then came a shift in the 18th century when native voices started to appear in America. I mean to say here, like, for like almost 300 years, like, beginning from the 16th or like 15th century, the 16th, 17th centuries till the time of 18th century. Only the British people used to write, or British colonists, British writers used to write about America, right? But by the time of this 17th century, you know, American, originally, I mean to say, the native people or native writers of America emerged. And 19th century saw the emergence of a new, or like, few notable poets who distinguished American voice from that of the British colonists. Because earlier, only, like, the British people or British writers used to write about America. But now, this time, in the, like, by the time of 19th century or late 18th century, the British people, uh, you know, were not only into the picture, but the American started voicing out their even rights and about their issues through the poetries of America. And Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, H.W. Longfellow, Emerson, Thoreau, Edgar Allan Poe, or some of the prominent writers and poets of the time or of America. In 19th century, American poetry aimed at exploring and establishing an idiom that was American in nature. And Robert Frost, especially one of the first few poets of the 20th century, carried forward the 19th century trend of contributing to the authentic American voice and experience. Then, guys, you can say now, like American people are emerging and they are trying to come up with their voice. Their intervention can be perceived now, so by means of an emphasis on description of a rural landscape and use of American colloquial speech. Frost defines contour of New England life and stresses social and philosophical themes of his time. So, my dear students, this lecture is going to be very effective and very important from the point of view of examination also, because in order to understand American poetry, which is a separate genres of English literature or poetry, and in order to understand any genre or poetry, one needs to be, you know, uh, one needs to understand poetry. Okay, one needs to understand its historical, social, political background. So through this discussion, you can understand this thing, right? So, my dear students, having found, uh, an American voice, poets in the second decade of the 20th century veered through modernism, because this 20th century is a time of modernism or modern literature, or you can say the modern as a term is emerging. Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, both of whom were, expatriate American poets, right? And are famously associated with this movement's early inroad into the American culture. Thus, modernism, as a part of the larger European phenomena, influenced American practitioners like those who used to write poetry about America. And Wallace Stevenson, Gertrude Stein, William Carlos William, Hilda Doolittle, and E. E. Cummings are among American poets associated with high modernism in 20th century, right? In America, basically, because in this time, British poets are also writing, and in British literature, British poetic literature is also very strongly emerging this time in the 20th century and coming up with the criticism of society. So it is crucial to note that not all 20th century poets in America subscribed to this literary movement, and there were certain writers and poets who steered clear from it, and some of them are associated with literary trend that is called new criticism. So new criticism is also coming into foray during this time, and they are like new critiques like I would like to name few of them like Alan Tate, Robert Penn Warren, and John Crew Ransom, and many other writers are also included in this gamut and group of neo criticism. And like poets like Langston Hughes were associated with Harlem Renaissance around the same time, and it focused on social concerns of African American as a special genre, like wherein we talk about the racism as very important or apartheid as important issue, and because our society is you know having many such issues. So now, guys, like the first poet I would like to discuss over here now is Robert Frost. We will talk about like his life and his writings, his poems, and all. So Robert Lee Frost is an American poet. He belongs to 20th century, and also he is also known as the New England poet. Lived a life rich in association because this like by this time like this uh, uh, poetry or like the England even I would say like is known as New England, right? And he was born to very educated parents and raised in San Francisco. Frost lost his father at very early age of 11 and had to move to his native town of New England to pursue his career. And my dear students, I would like to tell you like this term New England is coming again and again, and the reason being that this New England is a term actually which is having its connection with England, right? Because now it is considered the New England, right? Because newly formed England, like America is called newly formed England, and that is why it is named after England, like New England. And he dabbled with various, like I would say, like this man, uh, Robert Lee Frost. This he pursued his career even like there. And dearth of money, necessity, the mother and the son to settle down there was very much full of struggle because he came from a very downtrodden and very humble family. He did not belong to rich family or elite class. He dabbled with various employment options to earn a living, like newspaper reporting, teaching at school, at times even working at mills also, in order to meet his daily expenses or to support his family, to support his studies, to support himself. So writing poetry was leisurely pastime for him, right? So there are many poets, those who struggled a lot or actually grappled with financial issues in their lives, and they had to resort to working with very petty works like working in mills and doing like such type of humble jobs. So my dear students, around 1900 his persistent bad health actually raised a possible concern for tuberculosis, and many writers died of tuberculosis because in during those days tuberculosis was very serious ill, and even it is serious illness even now. But in those times there was no medication, there was no treatment for tuberculosis. So if somebody was infected with tuberculosis or diagnosed with tuberculosis, so most of the people used died of this disease. There was no proper treatment, but now we have the treatment for tuberculosis, and many people lost, or writers especially, because we have many names like, and I remember one name, John Keats. John Keats also died of tuberculosis, a major and prominent romantic poet. And guys, this made him move with his family to live on a farm in New Hampshire. And around 1906, with his still worsening health, because tuberculosis was deteriorating his health more and more, and Frost engaged in composing verse with eagerness because he was he anticipated that now just be this disease, tuberculosis, cannot allow him more life. So he started writing, you know and with more eagerness. And in 1912 he moved out of the farm and settled in England, and Buckinghamshire was a place he chose to live at. And his first poetry collection, A Boy's Will, A Boy's Will was published in 1913. As the title Boy's Will, raises a kind of a curiosity in our, mind that this obviously, he would have been a boy So he is trying to describe his struggle, boys will. So he is obviously trying to actually confess his own life thing, right? So that is why I always say, guys, uh, literature is not away from our real life. Literature is the mirror of societies, and it's mirror of even lives of people. So similarly, here, like as we are discussing Robert Frost, so Robert Frost, as he went through lot of hurdles, lot of problems in his social life since his childhood, and with the passage of time, he grows, and then he found himself infected with tuberculosis. Then now he started consciously writing poetry, and in poetry he definitely must pen down his problem. So, and then north of Boston was another writing came out next in 1914. 1914 is a very year when the World War first broke. Then, guys, after his break stay in England, he moved to Vermont, that is in United States, in 1919, and brought a farm there. And from then on, he frequented between rural settlement and city dwellings, and this connection with the countryside explains his preoccupation with nature, because he came from a rural life, rural background, so he has some attachment. But now, when shifting to here at this place, so he was like enjoying the taste of two different setting of places, like rural and as well as urban. So, my dear students, Frost received no recognition until he was 40 years old, and from 1930 onwards did acknowledgement came his way, and in 1957 he received honorary degree from Oxford and Cambridge, and also became the poet to have won a Pulitzer four times. Pulitzer Prize, actually, it is given to the given for literature, right? Your achievement, and it is a recognition given or prize, literary prize given to the authors or writers, poets, right? Now, my dear students, uh, I would like to talk about like his uh, poems like about a boundless moment. The introduction and the stanza wise discussion we will do in this poem, and there may be a question on this poem also in your exam. So let's understand. So, dear students, let's discuss this poem, "A Boundless Moment," which is from Frost 1924 poetry collection, North Hampshire. So, North Hampshire is a collection of poetry, and this poem, A Boundless Moment, is one of the poems from this collection of poems named New Hampshire, and that this collection won the Pulitzer Prize. Okay, so this poem is in your course also and is meant to be studied in detail, guys. And an important link of this poem is with major event that shook the world, right? So, I'm sorry. So, in an important link of this poem is with this major event that shook the whole, world. That is the First World War, broke in 1914 and goes up to 1918 for 4 years, right? And it was marked by widespread destruction and complete breakdown of all that had defined people's lives until that movement, like their values, beliefs, associations, and ideas. And you find this distortion of humanity or civilization in many other poems also, like T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland also talks about all these destruction, or the problems, and all that had previously given meaning to the world was called into question in those years. Imagine, like, this was a world handed over to the common people and artists alike by rulers of resources in countries of Europe, right? So this poem, A Boundless Moment, captures two individuals who happens to pass, uh, you know through a forest and came across a mysterious sight far off in the distance. And one of them tries to comprehend what the sight might be. But his guess is as good as that of his fellow traveler, because these there are two people, two fellows were going through this journey. Okay, so the poem is written in the voice of the second traveler who revisits that moment in his imagination, and there is a clear reference to he and I in the poem, defining the two travelers. So he and I are through this two subjects, you understand that there are the two characters and individually they are talking about. And he describes here in the poem a version of the vision that they observed in the distance. And the sorry, the attempt to interpret that vision highlights the uh, writer's stage of mind, and we are made to observe that what lies ahead is not clearly defined figure, and hence the act of interpretation. So the poem presents meditations on nature that appears in the form of forest, and this is the poem presents this way a very a picture and you know surrounding of forest. So in it the wood pulses with the philosophical rumination. Immense interaction with nature is shown in it, where the vision of the forest fuses with the mind of the observer. Because as the dream was dreamed by one of the the characters is importantly discussed here. So this is where like the distinct poetic genius of Robert Frost gets manifested through this poem, through the delineation of these two characters, through the imagination of these two characters and the way it is presented, it is manifested. So the writer's persona in the poem is noticed, you know, poems notices something at a distance, but nothing is distinct. So this sense of wonder is the main crux of this poem, my dear students. Okay, so let's discuss now. This is the overall, actually, the idea in nutshell. I just told you, and then we will have the discussion stanza wise also. So this boundless moment tickles the mind through the three short but extremely evocative stanza. In it, we are face to face with two opposite states of mind. One ascribes to the he and in the poem, and the other is other two I, because there are the two friends. Okay, one represents he and then I. Okay, so this is how we there are two people are instrumental in the poem. So the first stanza goes like he halted in the wind, and what was that? Far in the Naples, pale but no, not a ghost. He stood there bringing march against his thought, and yet too ready to believe the most. Right. So these lines actually, or in this stanza, or this stanza actually introduces to the reader one of the two travelers in the poem passing through the wood. The first traveler notices something in the distance, but he is unable to figure out what exactly it is. And the speaker, who is the second traveler, presents his companion's state of mind and his response to the curious sight that they see in the distance. Okay, and see in these lines a reference to the wind that is blowing. Okay, so this the way the incident of seeing or observing is being compared to the wind but which is blowing, like the way they are observing it. Okay, it is that, and then it immediately transports the reader to realm of nature, the lush green woods that lies in front of the two travelers. It's complete ambience of this poem. The way he has presented is amazing. It's really, it shows his mastery. And the first traveler sees something at distance amidst maple, but as said, is unsure about what it is. So he stops, looks at it, finds it pale, but and it is not as stark and horrifying as ghost. So to him, the sight is very enigmatic. It indicates an unrecognizable image, which is a word and ghost used in the context. So this think about its significance. In it, there is a faint suggestion about this ghostliness. So we as we dwell on the idea, we are struck by the aspect of imagination residing in the traveler's observer's mind. So it is a state of mind overcome by doubt and anxiety that makes the traveler imagine a very unearthly being, pale but not a ghost. So could it possibly reflect the crisis overtaking the European would during the war years? Reflect on it to the grasp whether the uncertainty of scene in the forest was indeed an unsettling vision of apprehension rampant at the time, right? So at another level, reference to the ghost evokes mystery surrounding the image. That that form might be termed as spirit, right? So, my dear students, further in this stanza, while observing the unknown image, the traveler wonders about the month of year, and after this initial response to the sight in the distance, the traveler thinks of the month of March, right? And the speaker says he brings March against, his thought, and yet too ready to believe the most. So, this reference to March is a little challenging to grasp, and it makes us stop and guess its meaning in the poem's context. Right. So, what does the month of March signify here that we need to understand over here? So, the traveler, in an attempt to make sense of distant vision, recalls changes that appear in nature in the month of March and correlating it with what he sees. Right. And he actively uses his faculty of reason to make sense of confusing them form. Right. And immediately then speaker says and yet too ready to believe the most, even as the traveler uses reason and tries to correlate the vision with changes witnessed in the nature at the time. And he is ready to believe that which is not told to him. So the words and yet tells that the speaker is talking about two contrasting attitude. The first involves using his faculty to understand the given faculty difficulties, and second is characterized by belief alone, right? And also the month is associated with reason and imagination. And reason and imagination are like the two important combination. That reason, in a way, reflects the 18th century, and imagination is a part of romantic literature. So here, but you find both the things in the poem of the Robert Frost. Okay, so my dear student, like instead, I'm sorry, I would like to discuss the theme of uh, like of this poem, a boundless moment. I would like to discuss a certain certainly like we can do analysis, critical analysis. So this poem, boundless moment, engages with the processes of human cognition and the individual's response to surroundings, right? That human mind, how the human mind thinks about its surroundings, and how the human mind responds to surrounding. Okay, that we do, that we do in a proper there's a procedure that we follow that procedure. So in this three stanza poem, the poem packs this myriad idea pertaining to conditions and individuals approach to them, and all these ideas are delineated by means of experience the traveler underwent in the course of their journey. And by means of a deep engagement with the nature, the poet has located through them the essential question of fear, agency, and subservience. Okay, and At the center of the poem, is a countdown, a, a challenge that travelers confront in the wood, right? That is at the center, at the uh, core of this poem. And situation involves uncertainty, making it difficult to understand what lies in front. Okay, this perplexity is also there. Okay, and mastery, this sort of strangeness and sort of confusion, this mystery forms a crux of this challenge, and it comes in the form of a shapeless sight at some distance in the wood that the traveler tries hard to interpret. And and in it we notice Robert Frost's characteristic style, subtly establishing a connection between nature and phenomena of human life, the strange natural side that has a parallel in nature, right? So it is a interaction between nature and human mind, human consciousness, in this poem, that is at the focal point. Okay, because it is a you can say discussion between human psychology, how the human mind interacts and respond to the nature when you come into contact with something which is very perplexed, very mysterious. So how human mind interacts and respond to the mysterious objects or mysterious experiences. So here, through the poem, the writer is trying to exaggerate his feeling. Yes. And the poem brings out the idea that one state of mind determines the impact of circumstance on us. And in the event of uncertainty, one might respond with fear and anxiety. Of course, when you come across any uncertainty in your life, so definitely you get scared, and you have some anxiety also. You do not feel comfortable. So the same thing is happening with the poet also, and that eventually colors one's perspective. Okay, and to the first traveler the unknown sight appears pale, even suggesting the possibility of it being a ghost. Like, this is also one possibility that he has in his mind. But the second traveler views it as a paradise in bloom. Okay, and this is a difference of perception. How, like, one, like, the how one person thinks, that in their thinking may be different, and different than the other person. So same is happening here. So therefore, like, the same sight inspires different responses from the two individuals, demonstrating the possibility alive in every difficult situation. So these two people, two minds, two individuals are observing the same situation with different perspective, different understanding, different thought process, different psychological analysis. Right? So let's add to this idea of reason and belief. In the face of challenging circumstances, one might take recourse to reason and make sense of the situation on one's own, right? And consider the first traveler bringing march against his thought and trying to reason out the nature of the sight in front. And the ability to think for oneself, it is laudable human characteristics, as you know. And at the other end of the approach is belief, like, whereby the individual gives more importance to the knowledge gained through the deployment of the senses. So thus reason and independent thought are replaced by subservience to different logic that entails unquestioning acceptance. So these two out these contrasting, even I would say, approaches are seen coexisting in the first traveler, right? So thereafter, the concept of human imagination is introduced by means of second traveler. His active imagination makes him perceive the sight as one involved a bunch of flowers, and the ability to dream about and envision which may not exist in reality already is an essential and liberating aspect of human personality. Okay, that is there. Okay, so I'm sorry. Yes. So thereafter, the concept, uh, you know, of imagination, human imagination, is introduced by means of second traveler here, right? And his active imagination makes him perceive the sight as one involving this thing here, and this renders the person capable of imagining an alternative to the existing conditions that may be uncertain, hazy, or unclear, but worth trying for. Right? That is the idea of the poem here. So so guys, we will only discuss now the thematic part so that you understand it, because it will consume more time if I do the line wise analysis of the poem. That is good, but it will consume more time, and we won't be able to touch upon or cover almost like every important part of the syllabus. Okay, so that is why I decide to engage with these and talking about the themes and its analysis. So second poem that I am going to add in this series is after apple picking. After apple picking, this poem is about reflections of an individual working in the orchard and picking apples. And the most striking aspect of poem is its humanist strain, right? So the speaker's thought acquaints us with ideas of tiredness, hard work, and humility, and all of which like together construct an experience intensely genuine and very authentic also. So the apple picker actually this the person who picks apple is exhausted from overwork, but working hard as a choice like he has made consciously. And in a moment of intense motivation, he promises to himself a good harvest, establishing the worth of human desire he be very productive. And the speaker juxtaposes the expression of his tiredness, his inability to work any further with an expression of his goal of having a good harvest. Right? So this, the detailed response or like this reference to the exhaustion and urge to work more is an acceptance of his limitations. And he does not glorify the act but expresses nonetheless like his thoughts very honestly. So, my dear student, this is like the poem which talks about the very like situation wherein it showcase the the struggle of the person, his hard work, and so that is why like it has been written a very from the humanistic perspective. So in the poem, the reader is made aware of intricate details of worker's life and his thought. And the central figure chosen by the poet is not a grand individual, but an ordinary person working in the orchid. So the first thing is very clear that because Robert Frost belongs to a very humble background, he came from very poor family. Okay, so he struggled a lot in his life. He also worked like very humbly in like selling newspaper and working in a mill. Okay, so these small jobs like he did in order to survive, in order to support himself and to his family. So that is why like you can say he is trying to delineate his own life experiences in this poem. Okay, so the representation of his state of mind and the depth of his conviction familiarizes the reader with the these vagaries of work of an apple picker. Because apple picker like they work in the garden, apple, that's orchard, and their life they are poor people. They're not rich people. They're poor people and they have to struggle. a lot in order to survive. So this is the saga of their struggle. So guys, Apple Picker has a candid tone in the poem as he talks about his pending work and sleep that overpowers. He is so tired and he wants to relax, wants to sleep, wants to take rest, but the pending work does not allow even to think for rest for himself, right? So this kind of tension hovering over his mind is very problematic, is a kind of a challenge for him. However, it is an expression of his resentment with the working conditions, and the atmosphere is positive, and the speaker is seen to be painstakingly involved in his work. Right. So, my dear students, Robert Frost poem in his poem actually he like actually, human experience is depicted in conjunction with scenes from nature, right? So in both the poems, you will find there's an interaction with nature, right? The poor man, struggle in his life throughout his life, and these poets, these writers are somewhere having connection or having attachment with nature. So that is why they are trying to maintain this cord of cordial relationship with nature. So we observe in it the thoughts, thrills, and challenges of an active individual pursuing his goals seriously. And the impressionable mind of an individual is commented upon by means of images from nature. And while acquainting us with the predicament of such an individual, Frost's poem highlight how it how at times people put extra pressure on them with no compulsion from outside. And sleep is not what they chose, but something that visits them so that like they carry on with their job with renewed vigor. And it is moot question about like though like whether Frost remains unconcerned about gains of labor workers that may be appropriated those others like who control society's resources. So in the poem that we have discussed in this unit, there's a little mention of group of workers sitting and exchanging notes about their shared uh, pursuits and social goals. So instead, Frost seems to be emphasizing an abstract human productivity for its penchant of hard work and genuineness of purpose, my dear students. Right. So here, like, and I would like to talk about like his critical approach also, and so that you understand Robert Frost and his poem, his analysis, his mindset, his social life, what exactly he is talking about in his poem. Because certain, there are certain ideas, certain themes, and some glimpses of mindset that you need to understand in relation with the poet's understanding in order to understand that particular poet, right? That I'm trying to teach you. So Robert Frost has, attracted considerable scholarly attention, right? Because of his, writings, his poems, right? So here now we will do the critical analysis. We will look at Robert Frost from critical approach, right? And critiques have commented on his, being a poet of nature and about the decisive humanist strain in his poem, right? That you find. So while nature acquires a central position, and Frost's engagement with the natural world is by means of speaker in the poem, and what we notice are not abstract description, but nature filtered, through the experience of an individual. Okay, so in this way, the Nina Bainsinan approach to Robert Frost nature's poetry has said, like I would like to quote here, quote first, we have the pastoral dialogues, eclogues and monologues dealing with the mutability of human relations and human existence. Second, like second, we have the nature. Lyrics usually composed as tiny dramas of recognition, elimination, or resolution involving a lone speaker confronting the landscape. Unquote. Right. So the mention of dialogues and monologues in Robert Frost's poem establishes a decisive presence which is characteristics of his style, which makes him different less than others. So Bain highlights that his poem deals with mutability of human existence, and this implies that the poet often engages with the idea of change that is central to both human existence and process of nature. Change is, permanent, else nothing. So we also notice in this poem, a boundless movement that mentions a tree with old leaves, evoking the idea of change central to both human life and nature. Okay, and when there are, these ideas are violated, a strange sight that you know Pix observes, curiosity gets created. Okay, so critics have also commented upon Frost being different from other modernist poets. He does not engage with the idea of futility and aimlessness. Okay, so like here, this is the different idea, and instead, like he makes meaningful observations about social experience and values associated with it. Right. So, dear students, human presence in Frost poetry also brings to light the dramatic mode, which is very important. And the dramatic element involves the presence of two or more perspectives that clash or interact in the poem. And on this account, Robert South Newdick in his essay Robert Frost and Dramatic quotes Robert Frost has observed that the height of poetry is in dramatic give and take. In a lyric, that dramatic give and take is within oneself and not between two people. Because the so those two people are reflected not by none other than but the poet. So this dramatic give and take mentioned by Frost is evident in the poem after apple picking in this poem. And the poem comprises internal dialogue of worker who has been working for long in the apple orchards and finally contemplates a need for some rest. But he is unsure if he would be able to sleep well enough. Right. So that shows Frost's deep concern for issues that relates to the society in this poem. Okay. So, my dear students, now I hope you can attempt questions related to the poetry of Robert Frost. And these two poems are also very easy now for you to write upon. Like these two poems we have discussed, a boundless moment, and another one like after apple picking. Right? You know about his language style also, and some of the characteristics that he discusses the poem through which. And next, the writer I would like to talk about is William Carlos Williams. Okay, so like this is an 20th century American literary background that we will talk about now. It is an introduction. Okay, just a moment, please. Just a moment, please, guys. Yes, students, let's resume the class now. Now we will discuss the literary background of 20th century America. So, following the great poetic crafts of Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, and Longfellow in 19th century, because these three poets dominated American poetry in 19th century. Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, and Longfellow. These three poets were very important. And American poetry saw a slump in the later years after their time, but from 1890 to 1910, like for these two, 20 years almost, one saw the rise in prominence of novel form for a reason that relates to the history. Okay, so novels started emerging in 1890s to 1910. And after the Civil War, there was a civil war in America. So America was building itself up with powerfully expanding economy and a vision of development. Okay, and this affected the masses on a big scale. And the mood of the time was very pragmatic, very, scientific, you can say, very full of reason, very rational, focusing on issues requiring immediate attention. Yes. Okay. Hello, students. Let's start the class again. Can you hear me?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay. So we were talking about the literary background of America in the 20th century, right? So we were, trying to understand the historical background and some important situation, some incidents, historical incidents that happened. So after this civil war, America was, building itself up with very powerfully expanding economy and vision of development, because America was in a state of, development, and this affected the masses on a big scale. And the mood of the time was very pragmatic, focusing on issues like requiring immediate attention, and there was little concerning imagination that poetry could engage with, right? So as a result of this, the poetic form took a backseat and the novel started flourishing. So in this time. So thus it was only in the second decade of 20th century that poets began to respond, to existing social changes as like the urban character of American life emerged concretely. And we have touched upon some of these important features, characteristics in the guys like previous unit we did with Robert Frost also. So like for example, like while Robert Frost focused on provincial American and expressed his intent in an apparently simple style, and most other poets of the time were heavily influenced by European sense of modernism. So like, and most other poets of time were heavily influenced by European trends of this modernism, because parallel to this type of modernism in America, there was European modernism also, which was spreading across entire Europe. And this new trend was witnessed across arts and architecture. Modernism had partially resulted from very uh, decisive changes the world over in the previous century. So, my dear students, we will discuss this literary trend in detail in a separate, section. Also, like, and one may, however, note that as a result of this influence, a number of, 20th century poets moved to London and Paris in the cultural centers at that time. And while few poets like Frost came back, Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot stayed there, and Gertrude Stein moved to Paris. Connecting the high modernist in contemporary writing was a spirit of experimentation in both form and content. And other poets like, you know, and other artists broke away from traditional styles and invented new forms to express themselves in the face of new reality, like T.S. Eliot also, right? So interestingly, with the Second World War, the the 50s and 60s saw another shift in poetic idiom, and this change manifested in varieties of forms. Like there were poets who adopted the confessional mode, and those who subscribed to the formal mode of new criticism, in addition to others such as beat poets who represented dissident cultural social voice. Right. And so, my dear student, that is there. And I would like to even talk about now William Carlos Williams was born in 1883 in Rutherford, that is in New Jersey, America. And his father was from the West Indies and mother was from Puerto Rico. And he studied at the University of Pennsylvania Medical School, where like he met Ezra Pound and Hilda Doolittle. And after receiving his degree in 1906, William decided to practice medicine and write poetry, and the two went hand in hand together. And his first collection of poems, published around 1908, and did not get a favorable response also. His second volume, Tempers, that got published in 1913, and it was published with Ezra Pound's help in London. Ezra Pound even helped T.S. Eliot in publication of The Wasteland also, right? So Ezra Pound helped, William Carlos William also. Until then, William had not found his distinct poetic voice, even though Tempers, this second volume of a poem collection, was met with approval, and Williams accepted he was working under the influence of English poets, then reacting specifically to his time with an American sensibility at back. And he observed, and he quotes like, I should have written about things around me, but I just did not. I knew nothing of language except what I had heard in Keats and pre-Raphaelite brothers. Unquote. So here he is giving the reference of his own understanding of the language and his own limitation related to language. That was the moment when he turned to imagism and adopted the imagist logic, right? And simultaneously he was in touch with his literary and artistic avant-garde in New York. So he is related to, imagist movement also, right? And guys, Williams' four seminal poetry volumes are, Al Q Quire, that published in 1917, then Sour Grapes 1921, and Spring and All 1923, Cora, right? In Hell, Cora in Hell had appeared in 1920. So all these poems were very important. Keeping company in quality with Spring and All, this is also the title of the poem, were the later ones that included the Desert Music and other poems that got published in 1954, and Pictures from Bruegel and other poems published in 1962, and Peterson Patterson in 1963, and that was reprinted in 1992 also. So, dear students, so this is like mm, like very kind of thing that gives us very panoramic picture of his poetic life, and he also wrote extensively. And William captures the very livid reality of his time in these collections, where the emotional and physical aspects have equal emphasis. He portrays individual scenes from society as well as objects from urban space that would otherwise be considered ordinary. And what also distinguishes poem from that of other modernist poets like Eliot and Pound is a spontaneity of language he uses. His language is very spontaneous, like Wordsworth. And this is at variants with the use of self-conscious literary style of high modernism. And as you know, like Ezra Pound was a very good friend of Williams and is often associated with the Imagist movement in modernist poetry. Imagism basically is regarded ordinarily as a part of the modernism because it is a sub movement, you can say, and of modern time. And in the later, like the poets adopted an aesthetic, evolving directness of expressions, and on his part, Williams only partially adopted the characteristics of movement, and he carried his own brand of modernist experience experiment in poetry. He is known to have influenced the poetry of the 50s and 60s in general, and the beat movement in particular. He affected, influenced a lot. He was a friend and mentor to the iconic beat poet Allen Ginsberg, and Allen Ginsberg is related to beat movement and wrote the production uh, this introduction to his poetry collection Howl and Other Poems. So my dear students, William was influenced by European avant-garde movement that vouched for breaking up away from tradition, but what distinguished him was the conviction to preserve American experience. He chose to capture ordinary individuals and immediate surrounding in verse. He sought inspiration from painters and at time also painted. He associated with the New York group of artists and writers called the Others is well known. You know, so he was part of this group that is called the Others, and the group included Wallace Stevenson, Martin Decamps, Manny Ray, and many more like such poets and writers. So with this, guys, I would like to tell you about modernism in America. Basically, modernism was an artistic movement that came into being in the early 20th century Europe, and its American variant carried the essential features of the movement. Okay, initially it was noticed in European society or in Europe, not in America. Apart from writers and artists already mentioned in my discussion, European painters such as Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse and Paul, Cézanne also influenced American modernists. And T.S. Eliot has described the time as the immense panorama, I quote it here, the immense panorama of futility and anarchy which is contemporary history. So this is how T.S. Eliot criticized the time. And all structures, values, and conventions that define human life are called into question by proponent of modernism. And a bloom in technological innovation led to a new urban landscape in America with the construction of skyscrapers and bridges and subways and factories. These were under construction, and development were also different types of developments were also witnessed in the field of psychology and science, which called into question conventions believed to be true until the 19th century, my dear students. And in the period under consideration, the two wars had unleashed mass destruction that, loss of life had caused general confusion and gloom. And this ushered in an entirely, different era in arts. And Ezra Pound's famous phrase, make it new, that is about modernism or modernism, describes a phenomena very aptly, very categorically aptly. And poetry too caught up with this process of creating, with which came that came to be termed as a aesthetic, new aesthetic. That way. So uh, with this thing, like guys, I stop this lecture now. If you have any question, you can ask, and I will upload this lecture on my YouTube channel, and you can listen to the lecture from there also, and you can subscribe, likes, and share my this YouTube channel to the other colleagues, your friends, and to whom you want that the literature is important, and you all should understand literature in its holistic manner.
Okay, sir.
Yes, Janvi, you can ask your questions. Yes, please. Yes, Janvi, can you hear me? If you have any query, you can ask now.
Yes, sir. I have shared the link itself in the group,
Yeah,
means the
yes.
message chat box.
So
And I
my
think so
dear,
somebody has some questions. If you are there, you can answer them.
yes, yes. Thank you, Salman. So, dear students, please, you can take the note of that, my YouTube channel's link, and you can subscribe to the channel. And in by tomorrow, day after tomorrow, you will have all the, these recorded videos uploaded on my channel. And in your free time, you can listen to them and prepare for your exams and maintain better understanding and better command over the subject. Okay, and I I would be working, very seriously, making the videos on different topics of English literature, and all the topics definitely, directly or indirectly, would help you being a student of literature. Okay. Yes, Janvi. Yes,
Yeah.
if you have any questions, so you can ask.
Yes, sir, I have queries. I want to ask that can you update me the next class about next class?
It's next week, right?
Yes,
The third and fourth.
it is next
Third
week.
and fourth.
Yes, yes, yes. So we will continue.
Sir,
We will continue from here only. Like we will discuss couple of poems given in the syllabus, and rest of the things of the syllabus. The dead baby. I guess like these are the poems, and the themes. Probably I will discuss themes, and a Windows Lament in Springtime. These poems by.
सर मेरे सर मेरे पास ना ज्यादा टाइम नहीं है 9 से मेरे एग्जाम है 9 दिसंबर से
Okay.
फाइनल ईयर के और सर मैंने क्लासेस भी जो मेरी हुई थी उसमें भी ज्यादा कुछ समझ में आ नहीं पाया तो अभी तो कुछ भी नहीं पता है तो इसलिए मैं सोच रही थी कि आपसे अगर कुछ अलग बुक के क्वेश्चंस के बारे में कुछ डिस्कस कर लेते हैं तो वो मतलब पर्सनली मुझे कुछ हेल्प मिल जाती जो फाइनल एग्जाम है मेरे नेक्स्ट मंथ में
Okay.
तो सर उसके लिए मुझे आपसे कोई कांटेक्ट वगैरह मैं कर सकती हूँ
हाँ, आप मुझे ऐसा करिए, यू कैन सेंड योर क्वेरीज ऑन व्हाट माय व्हाट्सएप नंबर. ओके,
यस सर
देन आई
यस
विल.
सर कैन यू
Yes, I will
आई
respond you.
डोंट हैव आई डोंट हैव योर व्हाट्सएप नंबर सर
Okay. Just a moment. This is uh, I had posted it yesterday. You were not there. This is double
Yes,
nine.
sir. I'm not there.
Yes, note it down. Double nine
Yes, sir.
five
Double nine
five double three
533
two double seven
277
six
six
seven.
seven.
Yes, Salman has posted it. You can take it.
Okay,
Yes, I have
thank you,
kept
sir.
I have kept everything intact, sir.
Okay.
Whatever you have
Thank you.
given.
Thank you, Salman. Thank
Okay,
you
sir.
very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay,
You're
thank you,
welcome.
sir.
And thank you for the class today. It was wonderful, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure. And just, I need a support from you guys, that if you can promote my channel, so that, like, my purpose of making these videos goes very fruitful and beneficial for the entire fraternity of English literature students across the world.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Once the videos come out, sir, the views will automatically go up.
Yeah.
Since I have already kept the link and everything, the
Yeah.
information in my
Yeah.
hand. Means
Yeah.
whenever the information comes up, I keep it in a stack.
Yeah.
So it's
Because.
like it's there.
Yeah.
So new people when they come, I will share it out.
Yeah.
I've already shared with some of my friends regarding this.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Salman. And guys, actually, I'm not very good at, like, handling these internet and technical things. So I'm not so tech savvy. So that is why I have appointed an editor who will edit my videos, and then will post it, like, on YouTube channel also. So I am making the videos and rest work goes to him, and he will take care of rest other like stuff. So probably by tomorrow or within a day or two, you will have your these all videos together uploaded on my channel. Okay, so in future, I'm going to make lot of videos, very important videos with advanced understanding, with you know a proper like discussion. We will do that in the videos about the poems and literature of different topics. So guys, let's take a leave now, and we will see in the next class. Now till then, take care and goodbye, guys. Bye, enjoy your time.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay,
Okay, sir.
bye.
Have a nice day. Take care.
Yes, you too, guys.